I am very aware that horror movies are not what I'm known for talking about on this channel, and I hope that knowing that, you hear me say this and go, wow, he really means it. Final Destination Bloodlines is a miracle. I have to make at least a short review so everybody can see me say that this movie is great. And like, I, as someone who is not known for being a big horror fan, is traditionally not super squeamish, doesn't love jump scares. I guess it doesn't get super involved in the genre, especially doesn't like stuff like those Insidious movies and like movies that do rely on jump scares. Not that they're bad, but they're just not my thing. However, as someone who grew up in the 2000s and has always been kind of fascinated by this series of movies, these Final Destination movies, I feel it is somewhat my responsibility to tell people who maybe don't know what they are and don't know why they're special, and specifically don't know why this new one is so great, that it is great. Now, okay, the Final Destination movies, for people that don't know, because this is a franchise of movies. There are 5 of them before this one. They've been around for a while. The first one came out in the year 2000, right before 9/11. Big plane crash in the beginning of it, so it's kind of interesting and easy to remember when that movie came out. But like, they have not made one of these in a decade. They were very fun when they came out, and one of the things that's always been great about this franchise is it is a franchise you can reproduce. Like, it is kind of like Saw. There's other franchises, I guess, that feel like this, but like, the premise is very simple. Final Destination movies are about characters who, for some reason, usually because of a premonition, cheated death. In the beginning, there's a big disaster, and then it turns out it didn't happen because the character got a premonition. They didn't do the disaster. They got everybody away. It still may have happened, but they saved some lives. And then for the rest of the movie, death comes for them one by one. And it does so in what is called Death's Design. These Rube Goldberg machines where a thing in your room lands on the desk and knocks over a soda, and then the soda makes you slip, but that's not what kills you. It's the slipping also makes you touch something else, and that maybe releases a wire. It's so hard to explain without just showing you some of them and why they're amazing. But this franchise started as this very earnest horror franchise. Like, it was still a little bit campy. It was always on the verge of being fun and tongue-in-cheek and stuff like that. But I don't think it really found itself fully till Final Destination 3, where it became full-on Looney Tunes and a comedy. Now, there's still a lot of blood, and it's still very gory, but it's not the kind of gore that I think you're meant to take seriously. There are certain moments in each movie that I think do make audience members cringe because of specific fears or things like that. Like, even just thinking about it now, the scene where, in 5, a character gets laser eye surgery is right now, like, making me feeling uncomfortable, right? There's something in this new movie, Final Destination Bloodlines. It's not a big moment, but it is one of those things that always gets me. That I'm not going to spoil what it is. But you could make new versions of these movies as long as you could come up with a new setting, a new place, maybe new characters, although the characters are at least usually high school students or whatever, and new crazy ways for them to die. A new room they get into, something we're familiar with, sometimes, but not always, usually something that has a little bit of danger associated with it. So, like, for instance, the third movie has an incredibly funny tanning bed scene, which has what I and the producer of the movie in an interview I just saw call one of the greatest match cuts in the history of cinema, which I don't want to spoil it, but really is amazing. But like, sitting in a tanning bed is a situation that's kind of dangerous. You're vulnerable, and if everything went completely wrong, if it went the most wrong it possibly could, something really terrible could happen. So this franchise plays with those fears. I would say the individual most iconic scene from the Final Destination series comes from Final Destination 2, when the log truck gets loose and the logs just start killing everybody on the highway. I don't think the scene itself is incredibly iconic, because I can remember some bits and pieces from it, but there's other scenes later in the franchise that I can, like, remember so vividly because I just think they're so funny and, like, really well put together. But the idea of driving behind a log truck and that lingering fear, that like nagging voice in your head that's like, what if they all came loose? We would all be crushed by logs. That'd be kind of scary. That is something that is incredibly human, very relatable. That's what the Final Destination franchise tries to play with. But then, at the other side of that, you have this really relatable thing that you're scared of. And on the other side, you have these incredibly cartoony deaths where a character gets and I can't show any footage because that would get it demonetized, but like smushed by an elevator in half so that and you see some dummy that they made, and they do an incredible amount of work to make these look as realistic as possible, but also as fun as possible. And it's a beautiful tightrope that they walk. I know it sounds like I'm kind of over intellectualizing these movies, because at the end of the day, you think of them like you'd think of a Scream movie or like any other slasher movie where teenagers are killed in ways that are somewhat unbelievable. And there have been other movies that have tried this. I think recently The Monkey had some moments that were Final Destination-esque. I think Ready or Not had some moments that were Final Destination-esque, funny enough, because the writers of Ready or Not wrote the new Final Destination. But the marrying of this really natural, visceral, everybody in the audience knows what we're afraid of, a thing that is not supposed to be scary, not built to be scary, but scary. And a thing that a character will say, like, I'm scared of this, and another character will say, well, statistically, you're way more likely to die on the way to the airport than you are on the airplane itself, right? And that's true, but at the same time, the airplane's still kind of scary. So that fear, mixed with the Looney Tunes Rube Goldberg machines that kill these people, is something that me and a lot of people of my generation just loved. Now, I think Bloodlines does two things incredibly well. Number one, all of these deaths in this movie are so well put together, so well staged. I think there's one that stands out as the most insane, and honestly, technically, it's not the most impressive when you look at like what death did to kill that person, but then it does end in a way that's very satisfying. But also, what I think is so great about this movie, without spoiling it, is this is about a family, bloodline, right? The idea is all of these people managed to cheat death, but also, because they lived so long, they had families and people that are down the line, like death has to kill you in order. Death also has to kill their families because they shouldn't exist. This family has a grandmother and an aunt and an uncle and a bunch of children. So like, there are a lot of people that are in line. And usually in the Final Destination movies, the characters, maybe halfway through the movie, figure out the order people are going to die in and try to either warn the people or protect the people or manipulate the order in some way, because sometimes that will save people. But what this movie does that's so great is there are characters, who know all of the rules, who are completely familiar with what death is doing, know how to delay death, know how to stop some of its tricks. So they are able to pretty much say, this is what's coming for you. This is how you have to avoid it. It's going to be hard, but it's possible. But at the same time, all the characters that are in death's crosshairs, unlike usually being somewhat unrelated, everybody who was on the freeway that one time, or everybody that was on the roller coaster, and they're people at the same high school, but they're not all friends. Like, this is all family. So they were able to take that information and sit down and go, this is what is happening to us. And like in every Final Destination movie, there are people on the line who are more receptive to that information than others. But because they're not complete idiots, after the first domino falls, they do kind of get in line. And the characters are able to be way more proactive about it, which means the death traps have to be that much more clever. They have to fight the fact that the characters can kind of see the script, and they see what the camera is lingering on, and they know what might be dangerous later. But death is able to subvert that in ways that are so funny. So I think Masterstroke 1, having this movie be about a family, having all these characters know each other, have these relationships together, takes all of the deaths from fun little, vignettes where it's like, oh, these kids, there they go, they get electrocuted or whatever, to like, oh no, all the other family members are also around for this. They try to stop it, but they can't. That's so much drama. They're also all on the lookout for death at all times, so every small thing becomes dangerous. And some of those things are red herrings and some of them are not, and it's beautiful. The other thing this movie does so well, unlike most of the other Final Destinations, because so much of the other movies is about characters figuring out how death works, trying to subvert it, figuring out the rules, making friends, trying to like go to places where they think they may be more or less safe. These movies don't usually get a lot of time to explore ideas and themes and things like that. But because these characters, A, all know the rules pretty quickly, and B, all have relationships with each other, they get to explore other ideas. And this movie becomes, in a way that the other ones really aren't. You could kind of say, like, this is what they've always been about. But this movie, more than the others by a mile, is about characters wrestling with the fact that they are going to die. And they are scared of this impending death. And characters saying, like, this is what's important to me. This is why I want to live a long life. This is what I should be doing with my life. This is what other people should be doing with their life. And this is capped off by what I think might be the greatest cameo in the history of cinema. Really, like, genuinely, I think this is unbelievable that they managed to pull this off. And I'm spoiling something a tiny bit. Todd, People would recognize him from the Candyman movies. He was Zoom on The Flash. He did the voice for Venom in the new Spider-Man game. Has also been in almost every one of these, if not every one of these. I know he did the voice of the roller coaster in 3, but he's usually a coroner who characters run into, and, he'll say some foreboding stuff, maybe gives them some advice, and just be Tony Todd. Be a guy who is scary, can deliver some lines with some gravitas, some menace, and then be done. But he is the only actor who is connected to this franchise by more than 2 movies. Like, he is, while the movies are not about him, the same way that they're about Jigsaw, he is the connection. Now, he died recently, but the actor Tony Todd knew, I believe he had stomach cancer in real life, that he was, if not going to die soon, he was like not in great shape. But he used this, I would say it's more than a cameo in this movie. It's usually a cameo, but he has a slightly bigger role here. Used this moment, and they apparently let him write just some things for this character to say. And it's not incredibly long, and it's not incredibly profound, and then it's not something you've never heard before. But knowing, A, who this character is, because this movie, you get a little bit more of that than usual, and B, knowing what this actor was going through and what he chose to say in this moment is unreal. And it makes this moment in this schlocky, campy horror movie, whatever you want to call these Final Destination movies, like, moving, and also it gives the movie a perspective that is unusual in these, and I think like it's the kind of thing you can only get if you do a bunch of them, like if you're on movie 6. Just unbelievable that all this happened the way that it did. That he was in this movie, that his character got to do like a sign off, that he died, and he knew he was going to die before he did. I mean, he knew he was going to die, right? And that's kind of the thing, is everybody's going to die. So, and I'm not going to spoil it, but just a moment that blew my mind. The needle drops are great. Like, the humor is great. It is a very funny sense of like some irony, things happening, but like it's hard to explain the humor of these. And I would say just watch them. Like, I think they're all on Max, HBO Max, or whatever they're calling it now when you watch this video. You're in for some blood, maybe some boobs and stuff, but like, watch 3 to get a sense for how serious these are. And you'll know if you're liking it. But like, these usually got, reviewed as like, these are fine, nothing special by critics. But even this one has like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, because pretty much everybody's like, this is the perfect version of itself. And I'm really just doing this review because I know people are watching it. I'm not thinking, this isn't like a thing where it's like, oh, I got to get people to see it so they make more. I honestly don't think they need to make more. I think they probably will. If anything, Final Destination people, go back in time. I want one in the 1700s or something, where like Benjamin Franklin gets involved with this or something like that. Like, I think that is very fun. Or I want everything in a very specific location. Like, the whole movie takes place on a movie set. So every set piece is something we would think is familiar for that reason. So that's what you should do, Final Destination movies. Go backwards or go sideways, but don't go forwards, because I don't think they can go forwards. But you just want to say, if you ever like these movies, if you were ever on the fence, Final Destination Bloodlines is a masterpiece of these movies. It is not the greatest movie ever made, but it is the greatest version of one of these, and it is an incredibly good time. And you know what else is an incredibly good time? Nebula. Oh, Nebula. We're talking about Nebula. Nebula is a subscription streaming service that I helped to create. Supporting Nebula is the best way to support this channel. All my videos go up early, ad-free. For videos like this, maybe a day early, maybe 6 hours early. For videos on Nando V Movies, maybe a month early. A lot of it depends on the production schedule, but you will see my videos before anybody else sees them. There's also all kinds of great Nebula original content, like Jet Lag, but also documentaries, and also, fiction stuff that we're working on. I'll probably talk more about that soonish. And like, just go to Nebula, look around, we'll find cool stuff by cool people. Abolish Everything, I love that. I was at a taping in one of those. I haven't performed, but I mean, I was in the audience at it, which is kind of performing. You're laughing and clapping and stuff, and you're part of the show as far as I'm concerned. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60, which is like $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get a year Nebula for $36. That is $3 a month. It is an incredible deal. Go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. You'll be happy that you did. But anyway, that's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you around.